Hi, this is Jordan.
And I'm Bryan, and you're listening to The Quality Varies.
Hello, Jordan. I'm looking at my calendar to my right. I'm stressed out, man.
What's going on?
Between yesterday morning and Monday morning, I have about 2 hours that is not blocked out on my calendar.
Wow.
And I like to be busy. I don't like this, though. Not a fan.
That sounds a little extreme.
I live in extremes.
Yeah, don't we all?
What are we doing today, Bryan?
Well, I think you're pretty excited about what we're about to talk about.
English.
I think you're pretty excited about our topic tonight.
I'm leaving all that in there.
I hope you do.
Yeah, so we're diving into D&D a little bit. Good old Dungeons and Durgans.
Durgans and Durgans, hooray!
I don't know how many weeks it's been since we've talked about it. Probably too long for some and not long enough for others.
Mm-hmm.
A new book came out a couple days ago. What was that, 2 days ago?
Did it actually come out?
Yeah. Wait,
okay.
What do you mean? What do you mean?
I thought it was coming out next week. But
Bryan.
But you and I have been reading it, so I thought that you had some kind of like special access to it because you're
Bryan,
very special.
I don't know if you're being serious with me, but if we had special access a week early, I would be spending thousands of dollars on marketing for this episode.
All right, well, good to know.
We would be the dungeon coach on YouTube. He did get early access about 4 or 5 days.
Oh, wow.
And if I was like him, I would be spending more marketing on that single episode that he released than on any other video combined. But
dang.
Needless to say, no, it is out. I have the book right here that you can see, Bryan. Nobody else can see.
Your hand's over it, so I mean,
yes.
Wow, that's... Are you petting it? Way to punch your mic with the book.
Yeah, for that noise, that was the sound of early release bookage, apparently.
Right to the mic.
I am an audio expert.
Yeah, well, you have a mic stand. My mic is just sitting on an upside down basket right now, so I think we're both pretty professional.
You don't need to tell the people that, Brad. We crammed and we read this book, skimmed this book. And we got a couple other things we want to chat about, but
full disclosure, I barely read any of it.
That's okay.
I did not read this book.
We gave ourselves not a lot of time. The 2 hours that I gave myself yesterday, I slept for 3 hours the night before, so I took a nap instead. So,
wow.
Yeah, that's how that went.
Living in extremes.
Yeah. Bryan, you and I have very different personalities and interests, even in the niche hobby that is D&D.
Yes. Some might say, diametrically opposed perspectives when it comes to the game.
By some, that would be me. I would say that. I would say that we have opposed interests.
I know you would.
You think that we have complementary interests. That's the story I make.
I mean, it all goes together, right? So, yeah. Yeah, they're complementary.
Yeah. When I look at D&D stuff, I don't care about stat blocks. I don't care about builds. I don't care about Unearthed Arcana. I don't think I've ever read...
There's good stuff in Unearthed Arcana.
I think the only Unearthed Arcana I've ever read was when you, in the early days, when you were still trying to make a character exactly like Cloud from Final Fantasy. You sent me a bunch of PDFs about tattoos.
It was Noctis about...
Noctis.
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 Thank you.
Sorry, buddy.
Cloud did come later, but
okay.
The LG was Noctis. Anyway, continue.
You sent me a bunch of stuff about tattoos, and at the time I was like, what the heck is this crap? I don't want any of this.
It's good stuff.
Some of that has been published now.
I think. Most of that actually is official in the Eberron book.
Oh, is that the book that it ended up on? Mm-hmm. Did that book release after we started playing?
I think just after, if I remember correctly, which I might not.
That's crazy. I must not have been aware of releases at that time because I have no memory of that. I just assumed Eberron had been out for a while. Mm-hmm. Us living in extremes, I went from 0 D&D to all the things, all the D&D.
Yeah, all the
very
things
quickly.
twice, right?
I mean, I would say like 1.4. Yeah.
So I see a book sitting on your desk behind you, but I was reading the book that you bought.
Are you talking about the scriptures?
No.
The Bible?
Hey, look at that book. No, the other one that you keep punching
okay.
and petting and slapping.
The other Bible.
Easy. So you have that book, the early release, Wild Beyond the Witchlight, right there. But I was reading a digital copy, and I happen to know that you don't get the digital copy when you buy the hard copy. So you must have bought that book twice.
Okay, first off, we got to make a comment on that real quick. D&D Beyond does Facebook ads.
Mm-hmm.
And there are a couple things in life I'm confident about. I'm confident that the sun will rise in the morning.
Mm-hmm. Very brave.
I am confident that if I cold call 100 people in real estate, 98 of them will tell me that I'm the devil.
Wow, that's very specific.
One of them will take 5 minutes to understand what I'm actually asking them about. And then the other person might be interested in talking to me. And
wow.
The third thing I'm sure about is if I go into the comments of a D&D Beyond marketing ad. Is that a double word?
No, I think you're good.
Of a Facebook ad?
Mm-hmm.
Most of the comments will be about people being frustrated that they don't get a digital copy on D&D Beyond when they buy the physical book.
Uh-huh.
Every single time.
Yep.
And if I look further down, I can also guarantee that there will spark an argument of people trying to explain to those people, albeit in probably more aggressive ways than they could do it, that they are two different companies and all the things that play into the reality of what's going on.
Yeah. I get all that. But my point was, you have 2 copies of this book.
Bryan, I'm trying to avoid what you're asking me, and
I'm not asking you anything. I'm telling you, you got all the D&D stuff twice. You went from 0 to everything twice in zero time.
Okay.
That's pretty extreme, man.
I have most of the source books twice. And I have maybe 5 of the adventures twice.
Good gravy, son.
That's not that much.
That is infinitely more than I have, because I have 0.
You have
but
a
that's like
handbook.
infinity. No, I don't have a player's handbook. My dad has a player's handbook.
Oh, that's right.
I have 4 sets of dice and a dice tower. That's it. And some minis.
I
have 4 minis.
That's, it's... There are some books that are just... It's a better experience if it has a lot of good content. Mm-hmm. To the point where I just enjoy flipping open to a random page and seeing what the universe has for me today.
Wow. Mm-hmm. That
is a much better experience on paper, as far as just leafing through pages and kind of seeing what comes up. That interests me.
I get that.
You just can't do that on the online book. The online book is immensely useful for different reasons.
Mm-hmm.
Search functionality being the brunt of it. But
yeah.
And integration into a character sheet and character building.
Yeah, I love that, by the way.
Yeah.
I will, and also, I am making fun of you right now, but on a real note, like a real note, I will always be super grateful that you do buy the digital copies, because you can share them with me. And it makes making characters so easy.
It is quite nice. I was logged in to, I become ignorant on what other situations there are, and I had been logged out because I wasn't using my computer, and I was just trying to go through D&D Beyond, and I was trying to make something real quick. Somebody had a question for me.
Mm-hmm.
I was like, what is this garbage?
It sucks when you don't have everything, dude. The SRD rules are crap.
I mean, don't get me wrong. I mean, they're there for a reason.
Yeah.
And their purpose is fulfilled in tantalizing you to come further in.
Yeah.
There's a game... I think I've probably spent more money on this than I have on this other game, but Path of Exile. Have I ever talked to you about this game before?
Multiple times, yes.
So, quick version if I've never talked about it on air, but it's the free game that costs thousands of dollars.
Mm-hmm.
And,
Nothing but your soul, as you've told me.
Yeah, nothing but the soul.
Mm-hmm.
And it is a legitimately probably one of the best free games I've ever played, because you legitimately don't need to spend any money.
Mm-hmm.
Somehow I spent like $700 on that game. I don't know how. There's a cloth map draped over my desk.
Holy
behind me right now,
crap, dude!
signed by the developers.
That's like a big ticket item, dude.
I don't know how it got there.
One of those 3 a.m. drunk purchases, right?
Yeah, yes, one of those was true. Yeah, it was bad. It was bad. It was real bad. D&D, legitimately, like you just need a pen and a paper.
Yep, and some buddies.
And some buddies, which might be the hardest thing for a lot of people.
The hardest thing, but in my opinion, the best.
Oh yeah, for sure. And somehow this free game, at the risk of embarrassing myself, and I get to challenge myself because, I don't like when other people don't talk about money openly, but then I get uncomfortable when I talk about it.
Mm-hmm.
But with books and 3D terrain and minis, I've probably spent around all the digital stuff and all the digital like virtual tabletops and all that.
Mm-hmm.
I could say easily $2,000, $2,500, just like ballparking it without doing any math. Oh, I bought a lifetime membership to World Anvil. Okay, so like 3,000.
I'm trying really hard not to exclaim something right now. After your little
Bryan.
disclaimer about talking about money, I don't want to embarrass you more or make you feel more uncomfortable, so I'm trying really hard.
No, Bryan,
Not
this
to
is
have...
for the audience. You gotta just let it out there, buddy.
$3,000, Jordan. Are you serious?
Yeah, it's all a tax write-off.
Oh my god. Who is your accountant?
Somebody, I swear, I never would have been able to explain this to her if her husband did not play D&D.
Holy crap, dude.
And even then I had to explain to her.
Write-off.
Yeah, even then I had to explain to her how it was tax write-off. She's like, my husband buys crap all the time. He doesn't get to write it off. I was like, well, you see here, I have this business. And it doesn't make any money, but...
It doesn't make any money. Wait, can I be writing stuff out? Are you talking about the podcast?
No.
Okay. What's your business?
So I have an LLC.
I know.
With the worst name in the world.
I know.
And since I did a random like one-shot thingy at a local game shop one time last year, everything is an expenditure. I do D&D and I make money for it, so I have expenses, and maybe I only made $30 in that one shot, and maybe I've spent $2,700. I don't know if the audience is not seeing your attempt at talking and just like
I don't know, man. You're either a genius or need to be institutionalized for your own safety. Because that's quite a justification there, buddy. You made money on it one time, and so now you can write everything off.
I think it's fantastic.
Is that really how it works?
Well,
no wonder our economy's in shambles.
At the risk of that not being how it works, this is all obviously, a hypothesis.
Okay. Oh, good.
Yeah, but in that hypothesis, yes, for the past 2 years, that's how it's been working.
Well, I learned something tonight.
Yes. So, needless to say, when that pirate campaign got delayed, that was stressful for multiple different reasons, because I kind of needed that income to come in at a certain time for me to be able to show on my documents.
Dang.
So that was me making a quick trip into my local game shop to see if they needed any dungeon masters to do a one shot.
Nice.
And then they're like, no, we're in the middle of a pandemic. Get out. And I was like, you don't understand. I have expenditures.
Get out. That's good stuff.
We've gotten that out of the way, okay?
Oh, that was good. I enjoyed that.
I have too many books, okay?
You have too many books twice. Let's be clear.
Maybe I'll, that picture that I put on the Discord of that tower of books. Maybe,
send it to me.
Yeah, I'll send it to you, and maybe you can throw that on the Instagram, and we can link that for the show.
That'll be a good one.
So, yeah, I really do this for the people because I'm not saying all this for myself.
We know. We appreciate it.
So, this book that I got an appropriate quantity of, we just read through, skimmed a little bit of. I like to focus on the world building and the narrative aspects of it.
Mm-hmm.
Bryan likes to make silly creations.
Silly creations? How dare you?
So I just want to dive right into it.
Yeah. I only look at the character stuff. Yeah, and I only looked at the character stuff in this book. And
that's okay.
I only ever look at the character stuff and like sometimes the magic items.
Okay. Oh, cool. I mean, that's just, I was prepared to have everything spoiled for you, but maybe that just means I can use more out of this book than I originally intended. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I do actually purposely not read the adventure books in case you do take stuff from them as our forever DM. I don't think that should ever be a thoughtful choice. Ever be something you should be concerned about. I have a habit of, maybe this is a character defect, but my ego, which we're going to talk about at some point in the future, but my ego gives me a hard time on taking anything out of the modules that isn't heavily morphed, if that makes sense. Yeah.
So you guys have run into many things from many source books and many adventures that
gotcha.
So yeah, I would never worry about that. So,
okay, well, cool.
If maybe the only book I would ever suggest, possibly just because we're about to, because of possible future things, is maybe Ghosts of Saltmarsh.
Actually, that was one of the ones I was thinking about reading.
Oh, well. The only things I took from that is just because I spend so much time just their diagrams of like ships and their descriptions. So I didn't take any of the story elements out of it. So.
Gotcha.
So you should be fine. Okay, so Wild Beyond the Witchlight, is that what it's called? I have this book right here next to me, which has already proved its use.
Mm-hmm. Yes. Tell us why you're so excited about it.
So I ran first. You're not in the group that was privy to this. Thank goodness. Like, you should be happy because it just dragged on and on. Mm-hmm. But in my other group, both of you guys are home in a homebrew setting. I set them along a path that I may or may not have had an end goal for. Mm-hmm. And I was trying to think of an end goal as the sessions were going, and it just wasn't coming to me.
Oh, that's a terrifying spot to be.
Yeah. At one point in time, they stopped an army from coming through a portal from the Feywild. Mm-hmm. And I was like, well, this is great. You guys did an awesome job. Somebody's going to give you a reward. I don't know who or what it is yet because we only have 20 minutes left, and I can definitely BS for another 20 minutes, so I don't have to think of the treasure right now. Uh-huh. But I made the mistake of a couple of these folks had stones with them that let them travel back to the Feywild.
Oh, wow.
And the players already knew, like, okay, these stones last for 15, 20 minutes before they kind of dim out if they're not in the Feywild. Mm-hmm. And so everybody just grabbed a stone, and they just dipped back to the Feywild. The whole party.
Just straight back there.
I was like, oh, I literally don't know anything about the Feywild.
Oh, good.
The army wasn't even from the Feywild. The army was just kind of chilling there. It was a long story on that one, but
yeah, wow.
They were in the Feywild now. And off the seat of my pants, just a bunch of stuff happened. There was a waterfall with a bunch of colors. Somebody grew like porcupine spine things from their back from touching the water. Another one got like 10 years older. Anyways, they're going through and they spend all this time in this village that they already don't necessarily know what's going on, and then they go to the Feywild and they still don't know what's going on. And this whole time, I just am just spewing, I'm just throwing up just random stuff about what I think the Feywild looks like, because I have no clue. And so I'm sad that this book came out when it did, but I'm glad that it came out, because it just gives me something. And I know there's some resources out there, and there's some non-official stuff. And I think it's cool. I didn't confirm it, but I think this official book referenced an unofficial book on the DMs Guild. I have no confirmation for that. But if that's the case, I think that's a pretty cool thing. That just seems like a nifty little shout out. But I like it just because it gives me... I think the Feywild is a really cool place, now that I understand a little bit about it. One thing that I definitely wanted to stress about the Feywild is that it's a very beautiful but extremely dangerous place to be.
Yeah.
And I feel like I can do a better job at putting that atmosphere forward, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Than I did last time. And when I was reading through this adventure, they did an absolutely amazing job at giving me a lot of inspiration on, it's like, for somebody that might be looking, say like a kid is looking at some of this stuff from the outside, they might be like, oh, this is a bunch of like fun and colorful and like, just like everybody's playing games.
Right.
But if you're an adult and you're in the Feywild, it's horrifying.
Yeah, they're like gambling with each other's like souls and stuff, right? Yeah,
they're gambling with each other's souls, or like I think one of the things in here was like kids had been captured from the material plane and they couldn't, doomed to like eternal, because like they wouldn't get any older. So they were just doomed to just like working for eternity.
Yikes.
Or like some of the stuff, some of the things that Matt Mercer put in, the forced theater, where when you got into the theater, it was like kind of your soul was given to it. And so from the outside, it looks delightful, but like they're dancing and chant, like singing against their will.
Yeah.
It's like this macabre, like the surface is not everything there is.
Right.
So I just appreciated all that as I was going through it. Some of the initial things that I wrote down, I love layers. And so right in the very beginning, they're like, hey, everything that happens through this book, like just be aware of and kind of look for significance with a couple of just these numbers, the numbers of 3 and 8, because they're going to show up in a bunch of different places. And 8 is an hourglass, and the time means a lot of things here. And then 3 is also very significant in a bunch of different ways. And then I went through the rest of the book, and there's like fairy rings where you can either use the fairy ring if you're a fae, or like if you're not a fae, you have to have exactly 8 people in the ring, or else it's not going to do anything. There were just a bunch of little things where the numbers would show up.
Yeah.
3 had a lot of significance as far as something about the universe. I don't know. It was getting a little bit too philosophical for me. Maybe I should have had you read that paragraph. But things come in sets of 3 a lot in the D&D universe. So like the Coven that had taken over this Feywild area, there was a set of 3. And then the past, present, and future is a set of 3.
Oh, yeah.
So I liked the layers, and it was multiple times throughout the book where they just mention like 8 and 3, and if they kind of rewards the players if the players start to catch on and start to try stuff with those numbers, because they would find a lot of success. So I like that, because that's just whatever amount of side stuff that just let the players explore and get something out of it. I always think that's cool.
Yeah.
Something that it was really random, but there was a mechanic that the players or the characters, basically one of the hooks that you could start the adventure in the module was every character had lost something as a child, and not like a toy or anything, or a toy in one case, but the other one was like literally like 3 inches height, or like the ability to smile, or their literal artistic ability.
Right.
Which I love. Just again, kind of what I was talking about with the Feywild aspect, where it goes, it's much scarier than it seems originally.
Mm-hmm.
And until they get that thing back from the Feywild, they don't have the opportunity to gain inspiration in the game.
Oh wow!
Because they're
Wow.
like the lore behind it is like there's just like this nagging,
Yeah.
just like irritation.
Wow. That's a big deal.
Yeah, I love that because I suck at giving inspiration anyways. So I was just gonna tell him like, you forever have lost something in the Feywild.
Yeah.
You can never get there.
Yeah.
So right in the first couple pages, that was something those were a couple things I really enjoyed. Did anything stand out to you right in the beginning? What sections of the book were pertinent to you for character stuff?
Well, we can talk about my experience with the book real quick. So whenever a new D&D book comes out, like I said before, the only things I look at are character options. Another reason that I don't like the adventure books as much, the first one being I don't want to like spoil any story that I might play someday. And the other one is adventure books don't often come with many character options. And in this case, the only character options were 2 new races and some like backgrounds. There's 2 backgrounds, I think, that you can choose from, like pre-written backstories, and that was kind of it. And so I think we've talked about it on air, but the way I build a character is I start with some mechanics and think about how the character will perform and act in combat.
Yeah.
And then I build like a personality around what kind of person would be good at that. But I did a little exercise with the old Wild Beyond the Witchlight adventure book, and I created a character backwards.
I like where this is going.
Yeah, I created 2 different characters actually. Your way, where you come up with like a personality and junk like that.
I love it. I'm so excited.
And I didn't even do any mechanics or like anything.
Okay, real quick, because I forgot. I'm twice as excited about what you're about to say to me. But I did forget. I wanted to quickly, since I do now have a little bit more understanding of the Feywild, I just wanted to quickly explain kind of what we're talking about with the Feywild all the time. Because there's a lot of folks that they're struggling to follow us with D&D stuff, let alone the Feywild.
Oh, yeah. I forget that.
The 30-second version is, so Dungeons and Dragons. If you're not with us there, you're hopeless. Sorry.
Goodbye, listener.
Yeah, single listener.
Wait, come back. We need you.
It's a single. Yeah, at least leave a review on your way out. It's a role playing game, and picture, I don't know, the published land that you can play in. There's a couple different ones, but one of them you can picture as like the Lord of the Rings, Middle Earth.
Mm-hmm. High fantasy, right?
Yeah, high fantasy. And so that would be considered like the material plane. That's the world that everybody lives, a lot of people live on. Mm-hmm. But then you have like hell. Hell is a different plane of existence in the D&D universe.
Right.
And in D&D, there's, the nine levels of hell?
The 9 hells, yep.
There's 9 hells.
There's 9 levels, yeah. Some Dante's Inferno.
Yeah.
For you.
So you got that. You have, I think it's called Mount Olympus, which is a little bit of the opposite. Then you have elemental plane. Mm-hmm. You have the plane of air, which is just an elemental plane, and it's just literally just wind all over the place
and
with
clouds.
Some rocks scattered about. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then you have elemental plane of water and all that stuff. And then you have the Feywild and the Shadow Realm. How am I doing on my 30 seconds? I think I'm doing good.
Yeah.
And those are called mirror planes, and they're kind of on each side of the material plane. And the Feywild is kind of the Shadowfell is kind of like the gloomy Black Mirror version of the material plane. And so there's a lot of similarities, and maybe like a castle on the material plane is like this rot infested like elder tree or something,
Mm-hmm.
in the Shadowfell.
Yeah.
And the Feywilds is also a mirror plane, but it's picture like a high saturated, just high fantasy, just colors everywhere.
Yeah, like the grass is like magenta and like bushes are like blue, stuff like that.
Yeah. So like a castle on the material plane would be just this dark thing in the Shadowfell, and in the Feywild it might be like a tower of crystals or something.
Yeah.
So they're kind of aligned in that way. But in the Feywild there's Fey beings, and you get a lot of like elves. Elves came from there, I think. Am I right on that, Brian?
I don't know.
Okay.
I know where elves came from in the Lord of the Rings universe, but I don't know where they came from in the D&D universe.
Gotcha. Well, mirror planes, that's basically what they are. And so if somebody's in the Feywild, it's just this weird upside down in Stranger Things is a good way of maybe describing. Is the Shadow Realm what I'm thinking of? There's not another name for it.
The Shadowfell?
The Shadowfell. Yeah, that's what I'm thinking of, right?
Yeah.
The mirror. Okay.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the scary, spoopy place.
So that's like the upside down in Stranger Things would probably be a pretty good example of the Shadowfell. If you just picture the opposite of the upside down, that would be kind of the Feywild. So we'll see what I cut out of all that explaining in the post. But Brian, you made a couple characters out of it, the little that was in there, and I'm so excited. What do you have for us?
All right. First, I'll give you the first last and the last first. So the second character I made is a fairy. The fairy is typically in D&D only a monster race. You could never play as a fairy until last week. So I made a fairy ranger.
Oh, that sounds so unoptimized, and I'm so excited.
Actually, hyper optimized, and I'll tell you why.
All right.
I can't completely break the mold here, Jordan. I gotta do something. I gotta do some power building.
Yeah.
His name is Tim Tinney, because I thought that sounded funny.
Yep.
So his background, I chose one of the pre-written backgrounds, the Witchlight hand background. So a little bit about the Witchlight is it's this like traveling carnival, the Witchlight Carnival. And so Tim Tinney was like a carnival worker. He was a carny, basically. He grew up an orphan, just like every other D&D character ever, until he found the carnival, and he found a family. He found belonging with these other outcasts. So even though his duties were minor, he finally found a place that he could call home. So they traveled around the Feywild and across the multiverse, like you were talking about. They traveled to the Astral Sea and the Elemental Plane of Earth, and they would set up shop everywhere, and they'd perform, and old Tim was just there helping out, just loving life. One thing about the Feywild is it gets a little timey-wimey. You know what I'm saying? A little wibbly-wobbly.
That's a great description.
With the whole time-space continuum. After a couple of years to Tim, it had probably been, nobody really knows, but it had probably been maybe a couple of decades in, outside the carnival time. And so eventually he saw all these wonderful places, these exotic locales, and he just kind of started to feel a little bit of wanderlust. He started to yearn for an adventure all his own. And so he went to the owners of the Witchlight Carnival, Mr. Witch and Mr. Light, and they were inspired by his call to adventure. And so they, as archfey beings, blessed him with some strange fey magic, and he became a Fey Wanderer Ranger, and bade him to wander all the wilds of the multiverse with these new gifts. So that's how he became an adventurer. One of the cool things I thought they added was a Fae Trinket you could give your character during character creation. Yeah. And there's like 100 of them. And I didn't read all of them, but I just kind of skimmed through and found some that I liked. And I gave Tim a tiny electrum whistle that only Fae creatures can hear.
Huh.
Thought that was kind of cool.
Yeah, that is kind of cool.
And so typically, like, a fairy has, like, when I think of a fairy, I think of, like, butterfly wings, right?
Yeah.
But they gave you options to choose, like, different kinds of wings. Like, you can have, like, beetle wings that, like, fold up underneath, like, a shell, kind of. I gave Tim hawk wings. You can have bird wings instead of, like, bug wings. So that was cool.
And you say that this book doesn't have an immense amount of character options. They give you wing options.
There's options, yes. They're just none of the options that I'm looking for, typically. So yeah, that's Tim. And
I like it. You mentioned your lovely name. What's Tim Tinney?
Yes, Tim Tinney. I think that's a song lyric.
I don't know if you read any of the names
of
many of the characters in the book, or if you read the cards in the back of the book.
I skimmed through the pronunciation guide.
So I'm going to read some of these off, and you'll realize that your name for this character is very apt.
Good.
So we have Clapper Claw the Scarecrow, Candlefoot the Mime, Jingle Jangle the Goblin.
Ah, that's a good one.
Pedal Stream the Kenku, Pincushion the Living Doll. I mean, you get the point. I mean, Tim Tinney is right up there with him.
Right there.
Yeah.
Good. Glad I nailed the flavor there.
Yeah, I like it. And by the way, I love the backstory.
Good.
I thought that was awesome.
Yeah, I'm glad.
In the thing, they were wanting to say, like, if these backstories are used in this adventure, they're wanting it to be said that, like, the characters still have never been to the Feywild, even with those backstories.
Yeah.
And I just completely ignored that. I was like, bah, we'll figure it out.
It'll just make it work. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's, like, one of the coolest parts about a game of this structure, that, like, you can just do whatever you want and work with the dungeon master.
Yeah.
Just kind of bend the things to make it meet. I don't know. I like that.
I like it. Yeah, I'm a fan. I will say you kind of mentioned it a little bit, and I'm going to take it from the DM angle. Mm-hmm. With a lot of stuff in the beginning, or maybe this was from a video I was watching, but they give a lot of DM general advice at the beginning of the adventure, which is, I think, unusual. I haven't gone through a ton of the adventures, but they give you a good, like, 2 pages, 3 pages of, like, here's another rendition of kind of a walkthrough of how to be a DM.
Yeah. Have you read Van Richten's Guide to whatever?
Ravenloft?
Yeah.
I have tried. I have not been able to get through it.
Gotcha. I think that there was something similar at the beginning of that book. It was like, here's kind of the general lore of the world, and here's how to be a DM in this adventure.
Gotcha.
But anyway,
when they started going through the character stuff, I loved the little comments that they were making, where it was like, if the DM is okay with this being in their game, then you can go with this. And I was like, what a beautiful thing to put there, so that you guys have never been a problem. But I have had players where they're like, hey man, this is a published D&D book.
Yeah. Oh, that's a little bit of a tool bag thing.
Yeah. And not that, I mean, I don't victimize myself to be like, oh no, like, that book doesn't say that I can't not allow this. Like, I guess I got to give it to you.
Yeah.
But it is a nice little thing, maybe for my own pleasure, where I'm like, my ego and my God complex remembers that it also says at the end of the paragraph that if your DM allows it.
Yeah.
And I may have allowed it if you hadn't have tried to pull that card on me.
Ooh, pulling rank.
Yes, so.
Good. That's good stuff.
So I appreciated that, and I noticed that very quickly on the DM side when it just stresses, like, this is a unique thing. It may not work for every game, and just because it's published, don't assume that it's gonna mesh great with what your DM has in store for you.
Yeah, yeah. So. I like that they put that in the book, because, like, all of the like YouTube channels that I watch, they have, like, their own ideas about the game, and they all say, I mean, I'm a DM at my table, and I allow this. But talk to your DM to see if they'll be okay with it, because, I mean, we're bending the rules here. So that is cool that they added that in the official book.
All right, so what did you have for your second character?
The second character is the one that came to me a little bit easier, actually. And the backstory is a lot longer. I took a little bit more liberty. I took a lot of creative license with this backstory.
My body is ready.
So the other race presented in the Wild Beyond the Witchlight is the Rabbit Folk.
Well, were you excited about this? Had you seen this in Unearthed Arcana already?
Yes, I
Were
had.
you prepared?
Yeah.
Okay.
And I do think Rabbit Folks are cool. The Heronyan, I read. That's why I looked through the pronunciation guide. I wanted to make sure I was pronouncing that right. The Heronyan. So he's a male Heronyan. Rabbit Folk. I'm probably just going to say Rabbit Folk from here on out. This background, I took the Feylost background from the book. And again, I took a lot of creative license here. But so as a very young toddler, like 2 years old, he lived in a cottage in the middle of the woods with his parents. And the last
in the Feywild or on the material plane?
Prime material plane.
Okay.
He's 2 years old, and the faintest, earliest memory he has of this cottage is him running away. Not running away. He's wandering off into the forest, and he looks back at his house, this cottage, and wondering how far he'll get into the woods before his parents come and find him. So he kind of scurries off to try to play a little prank on his family right during twilight. Yeah. And he gets lost in some shrubbery and kind of gets lost, falls down, and then finds himself in the Feywild. Because that's how that happens. Like you said, it's a mirror realm, and it's like the book says it's a hair's breadth away from the material plane. So it doesn't take much other than being really unlucky to get there. Yeah. So he gets lost in the Feywild. He's 2 years old. Eventually, after what seem like days, he winds his way back to where his cottage should be. But like you said, the Feywild is different. And instead of a cottage in the clearing, there is a family of rabbits that live in a burrow. So he falls down this rabbit hole. Haha. And he lives with the rabbits for a couple of years.
Okay.
So he lives with the rabbits. Hey man,
just commit.
I mean, the whole raised by wolves thing, the trope has been kind of overplayed, so we went with rabbits this time.
I should talk to you one day in another episode. Apparently raised by wolves. There's some story in my family about some kid in the pioneers in my Homer family that was protected by wolves for like a day or so.
I believe it. Yeah, we'll have to talk about pioneer stories.
That'd Not an cool exaggeration, episode. By the way. I just feel like I have to give that disclaimer after our previous episode. Okay, so raised by rabbits.
Yeah, raised by Feywild rabbits. They're not your average, ordinary prime material rabbits. They're fancy rabbits. Like Peter Rabbit. They can talk. So they raise him, right? But the Feywild is this weird place, right? And it's kind of insidious a little bit. And so he spends enough time with these rabbits in the Feywild, in their home. Things starts to change, right? He doesn't realize that things are changing. Anyway, he goes on another walk, this time early in the morning in the Feywild before the sun rises. Gets lost again and winds up back on the prime material plane. And he's been gone for a couple of years in the Feywild. But he winds up in the prime material plane, starts to have these like vague memories of the forest, right? Yeah. So he goes back to the clearing where his cottage was, and he remembers the cottage, but the cottage is showing some signs of age. Yeah. It's like, it seems a lot older than it should. So he goes into the house, finds his parents, but they are like super old now. So like decades have passed. Yeah. In the prime material plane, and he had just been missing, and his parents were obviously distraught. But unbeknownst to him, he had changed from a human into this rabbit folk.
So he was a
human.
full human
Yeah.
in the beginning. Oh, okay.
Right.
Very interesting.
Right. And that's like the big like liberty that I took with this, because that's not how the rabbit folk came about.
Oh no, but I mean,
Officially.
if you were to come to me with that, I would be 110% down.
Right. That's
with
a
that
cool
origin.
thing, right?
Yeah, like that's so dope. Well, and it's like it talks in the, like, that's not necessarily the origin it may give for the Heron, Herongon, the rabbit folk. I see why you chose rabbit folk.
Yeah.
But they mention elsewhere in the book that when you're in the Feywild, things start to change physically. Like you get tufts of fur or things like that. Mm-hmm. Yeah. I'm super down with it.
Yeah. Yeah, so I kind of took everything that was there in the book and I just kind of cranked it up a little.
Yeah, as you do.
Who, me? So his parents barely recognize him, but he does still look enough like himself that they recognize him fairly soon. And so he lives with them for a few more years. But then, unfortunately, they pass away because they were super old.
Yeah.
So they die, and he's still like early teens, like 13, 14-ish. I don't know. So he wanders again, but he stays on the prime material plane. And then wandering kind of becomes his shtick. He does never stay in one place for more than 2 nights. And he just turns to the drink to kind of assuage the pains of his lost childhood.
A drunkard half rabbit. Mm-hmm. I'm super down with this.
Yes. Did I tell you his name?
No.
Okay, his name is Jackie Hope.
I like it. I love that.
So he turns to the drink, becomes an alcoholic, roams around, wanders around, stumbles upon this monastery in this little town that teaches martial arts. The headmaster there, or the head monk, I don't know the term for head monk at a monastery. He is a drunken master monk. And so he finds this little half rabbit alcoholic kid, and he takes him into the monastery, and he trains him to be a drunken master monk.
I understand this is high fantasy. This is taking a turn I was not expecting. I like it though.
Yeah, so then he regains like purpose and direction in his life, and then he becomes an adventurer.
Yeah.
So I thought those two classes kind of embodied the kind of random nature, the kind of unpredictable nature of the Feywild. Yeah, it was an interesting exercise for me to start with a character and end with a class, because I go in reverse of that normally.
So how, because I have done the other way as well, where there is what did you say, a mechanic that you want to do? Mm-hmm. So I've done that as well. So for you coming into the other, doing it another way, did you enjoy that? I mean, how was that for you?
I did.
A narrative.
Yeah, I really enjoyed it. Because Jackie kind of came to me as soon as I started reading about the Herongon.
Yeah.
And I was trying to think of like the Feywild, because they didn't give any classes, and that's what I really look for. They didn't give any classes or subclasses in this book, and so I just started kind of going through other subclasses and like, what's kind of like, like wibbly wobbly, timey wimey, unpredictable. Oh, a drunken master monk. That's their whole flavor, is like moving weird, like the unpredictable combat style. So I went with that, and then actually he kind of became Jackie Chan and Bugs Bunny combined, put together. Yeah. So yeah,
big fan.
That's Jackie Hope.
Those might be my 2 favorite characters that you've created. No, I'm just kidding.
Wow.
I've spent some more time with some of your other ones.
Yeah.
To warm up to them.
A few more time.
Yeah, a few more hours. Yeah. Those are awesome though. I love the fairy. I have a harder time like connecting to.
Yeah. But
the rabbit folk, because they put that wonderful image on page 13.
Yeah.
And that's just a cool visual.
It's a cool race. Like, I think isn't there a movie where like the Easter Bunny is kind of like this kind of rugged?
Oh, I don't know. I do. There was a couple kid movies about hamsters.
Not that one.
Okay.
It was like Jack Frost and Santa Claus and the Easter Bunny and like some other like, I don't know, holiday based characters. Like,
I know in like the third Santa Claus they start throwing like all the I think in that third Santa Claus, like the Easter Bunny is like this, like in my head, like he was like older, like rugged, like gravel, kind of like gravelly speaking.
Yeah, the movie I'm thinking of is like it's a CGI like kids movie. I think it's called Legend of the Guardians.
Gotcha.
And the Easter Bunny is like this, like he's got an Australian accent, and he's like he like throws boomerangs and stuff, and he's like this like really bad A fighter guy. So,
that's cool.
The rabbit folk kind of lends itself to that.
And the mechanics of the rabbit folk are great as well, as far as you get to add a D4 to dexterity saving throws.
Yeah, some of the racial bonuses are really cool. Yeah. Again, though, the fairy ranger will be the most broken, like low key the most broken character on your team, probably.
Yeah, I'll have to keep that in mind. Thanks for letting me know in advance.
Yeah. Remember
the rabbit hop from the rabbit folk? Because that was the main thing I wanted to mention. I love this rabbit hop thing. I just think it's a really cool. As a bonus action, you can jump number of feet equal 5 times through proficiency bonus without provoking opportunity attacks.
Yeah.
Like, what a cool...
Super cool.
Yeah, I just think of so many instances where that just gives you... And that's as a bonus action.
Yeah.
I like it. I like it a lot.
Yeah, super cool. Super cool.
I think immediately of rogues, but I also think of like a wizard who like can jump in and do like a devastating melee attack and jump out.
Yeah. Yeah. Super cool. There's there's so many cool things. Yeah. But like, remember Steven's Eric Cochra monk who just fly around everywhere?
Before I killed him.
Yeah. Before you killed him. Wow. You know, I was thinking about that this last week.
Yeah.
I think your 2 best moments of DMing, in my opinion, were right after that character died and right after my character died. I just thought, killing us must give Jordan some kind of superpower or something.
It was, I mean, that's a whole different conversation. I mean,
That's a can of worms.
Yeah, it's a can of worms. But yeah, I do vividly remember planning those sessions into like the session after each of those deaths. Those were very fun sessions, and like definitely ones where I sat down and I already I was excited. Like I didn't, I don't know what I'm gonna do, and sometimes I feel anxious and like I'm avoiding it. But like those 2 sessions, like I didn't know what I was gonna do, but I didn't care. Like I was just pumped, and I sat there for like 5-6 hours and just I use notepads in the beginning for a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
And it starts to become a real problem when there's just piles of like note paper just like scattered around because I'm trying to just write fast enough for mine. So like I said, can of worms.
Right.
But yeah, what were you saying about? Sorry.
I was talking about flight in player characters.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah. So flight. Yeah, but just imagine if he had a bow, right? Imagine giving him a long bow with 600 feet of range, and he could just fly.
Yeah,
it's busted. That's why the fairy ranger is gonna be like one of the most annoying and overpowered characters on the team.
Yeah. I mean, it's always exciting that a ranger gets to be powerful, though. Because that hasn't been the case in the past.
Yeah. I love, and partly because I like hiking and exploring in real life, and so that flavor is just so appealing to me. But they do kind of get dunked on in the D&D community for being subpar fighters.
Yeah.
Which I
think...
I don't love.
There were so many examples in this adventure, and I know Matt has brought it up before towards the end of season 2 of Critical Role, and I feel like there's like a shift of like I don't have any problem with combat, but I think there's a shift of like trying to like, okay, what more can we do? Like what other non-combat things can we do that is satisfying for players to dive into?
Yeah.
And I'm all for that. I love that. And so the first time I saw a ranger, like I haven't done a whole lot with it, but I've always loved the thought that like, man, rangers are so powerful, just not necessarily in ways that are combat related.
And that's true. They are super good. They have a ton of stuff for non-combat, maybe not social interaction, but like just getting around the world. They have a lot of cool stuff.
Yeah. And there's a type of game or a type of adventure where again, this isn't something that I see it as like an interesting thing. I don't have any interest in being the person that creates it, but there's a type of adventure where the ranger is the most is the most necessary or valuable character on that team.
Yeah, for sure.
So I just always appreciated that. So yes, wings are annoying as a DM. And but it makes it fun. The first time Steven's character, for those who don't remember, Steven is another player in our D&D group. The first time he wanted to fly from Phandalin to Neverwinter, I was like, okay, what do I do? How can I mess him up? Weather. Oh my goodness, weather is a thing. Like that was how it went in my head.
Yeah.
And I make a story that ended up being a fun thing for him because he got lost in the woods and they had to fight with the merfolk and or the Utoa or whatever they're called.
I don't know.
Yeah, so he made me remember that weather is a thing that can happen sometimes outside. So, but I liked it. Well, I fully approve of those two character builds.
Good.
I'm a big fan of them.
Also, since I've been on this narrative character mindset, you mentioned your pirate campaign earlier. I have Character Foundation that I will be playing whenever you run that for us, and I'm super excited.
Bryan, would you like an exclusive sneak peek on what the one shot is that I'm thinking about?
The pirate one shot, or like a different one shot?
The pirate one shot.
Is it a one shot?
There's a pirate campaign, but as part of that, in the effort of world building it, and also I had committed to some people here in town that I would show them D&D, and I wanted to do so. I decided to lump everything together. Somebody wanted something scary for Halloween. Somebody wanted pirates, and somebody wanted a one shot. So I was like, okay, spooky pirate one shot.
Hooray!
Done.
D&D.
So, would you like me to give you the brief of the spooky pirate one shot?
I would love nothing else.
This isn't going to spoil anything for you. This is basically what the rest of the players will be getting as like this is the basis of the thing. So, Southern Tatria is a massive body of land in my world, and it's a big hub of just lawlessness, and pirates are just abound there. So you characters, the characters that you guys play, are the sole survivors of an old shipwrecked ship from years and years ago. And basically that, like the night of that shipwreck, has a lot to do with the game, where you guys had been on a super successful just year of pirating. You had everybody on that crew was gonna go home and literally live the dream of they had all looted enough that they could all retire. And that is what every pirate dreams of. And then you guys made the fatal mistake that many pirates do, where you wanted one last haul before you got home. And so you guys, on your way home, you stopped at a port city. You snuck in, and seemingly kind of just landing in your lap were two of the children of the king in that land. And so you kidnapped the children on the basis that you would get a ransom, and took them with you, and then you headed straight home, convinced that you were going to get, from a ransom, you were going to get twice of everything that was already on your ship in a ransom in a couple weeks. And as it was, that was over on Lochria. That was the last kind of continent before you guys headed out to the open waters. And it was about 2 weeks to get to Tatria, back to home. And during that trip, it was a set of twins, a boy and a girl. Just things start to happen, and the boy, unforeseen circumstances, the boy dies tragically, and the girl just like starts doing weird stuff. And eventually she curses the ship, and she starts like doing these, like, some of the men on board start hearing like chanting late at night from this girl. And as you guys are like a mile away from shore, and like this massive storm creeps up, and you can just, she's screaming like chants on on the deck of the ship, and the men try throwing her overboard, and they thought it worked, but then she's up, tied up on the sails, just like screaming these chants.
Holy crap!
And then you guys crash on the rocks, not half a mile away from the port, and everybody in the crew except for however many players there are. You guys are the sole survivors.
Uh-huh.
So the basis of the adventure is that was however many years ago, and some men have reported seeing your old ship sailing in the dead of night just off of the coast, and you have basically been ordered by the head of the pirates. I don't want to give too much away about kind of the structure, but you've basically been ordered to go clean up your mess as they saw it, and so you guys go out on a different ship, and you got to go figure out what's happening, and it's just a nice little spooky sesh, you know?
Dang, dude, that sounds heckin' fun. I'd play that in a heartbeat.
So that's kind of the one shot that I'm planning. There's a couple things that I'm really looking forward to kind of mix it up a bit.
Uh-huh.
And as always, I am very excited to try to fit this into one session.
The curse of the one shot that never ends up being a one shot.
Yeah.
Even my one shot that I tried to run for you and Dad and Tanner. I literally had one encounter. I was like, there's no story. It's just, I'm literally throwing some monster stat blocks on a piece of paper, and I'm going to make you fight it. And we still drug it out to 2 sessions.
I'm so glad that happened, though, because that just means I get more sympathy.
Yeah, it's true.
So,
it's true.
That's kind of the basis of what that is. That is my one shot that I'm planning right now. Hopefully by the time Halloween rolls around. But so I mean, cool. Hey, I did a Christmas session with another group literally 7 months after Christmas.
Oh, wow.
Because that's how long it took us to get around to it. So
wow.
We told it was a Christmas gift exchange.
Mm-hmm.
And in the beginning, like the September before, I was like, hey, let's plan on doing this around November time. Uh-huh. And in June of the next year,
holy crap,
we're like, all right, gift exchange. So,
wow.
Yeah, and it wasn't to do with the players at all. It was just like narratively, that's how long it took to actually get to the thing that I thought would take a single session later.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Jeez.
So, but that's the one shot. I'm excited, and since pirates are always interesting,
yeah.
Hopefully it kind of brings an element that already kind of raises the fun standard. So.
Yeah, absolutely. Hey, speaking of spooky one shots.
Oh yeah.
And can I just say, I have always hated horror stuff. I've never liked it. I've always hated being afraid.
Yeah.
Like this is a little embarrassing, but like when I was a kid, I couldn't watch Scooby-Doo like right before bed because like the bad guys would like give me nightmares, and I hated it.
Yeah.
I've never liked being scared. And I will stand by that. I think that not enjoying being afraid, not liking fear is evolutionarily and psychologically superior to people who enjoy watching horror movies.
Okay, I don't like scary stuff, but I don't know if I can put that under my mantle and sit there proudly with it. Does Maddie like scary stuff?
No, she's a sane person.
That's good. That's a as far as things to have in common, I feel like that's a good one.
Yeah, that it sure makes movie night easier. But anyway, I've never liked horror stuff. I've never liked scary things. But paradoxically, Halloween has always been my favorite holiday.
Of course.
Dressing up as something scary was cool, and the candy kind of helped probably. But that spooky ghost pirate one shot sounds amazing. I just barely finished Ashley Johnson's one shot from Critical Role, and it was pretty spoopy.
It was pretty spoopy.
And I loved it.
So first off, this is the first time anybody has ever been able to witness Ashley Johnson. So Ashley Johnson, Critical Role, she's the only player that had not yet DM'd, if I'm correct. I don't think.
Yeah, she was.
I think
the last
she was
one.
the last player. Yeah.
Wait, what? Did Laura? Has Laura run one?
She has. I don't know if it was D&D, but she did. She did something.
Okay. Yeah, because the one shots tend to be something different.
Yeah. And I still hold to this day that I think Travis's might be my favorite.
Grog's, yeah.
Yeah.
It was so good.
Because I'm a child. And
yes. We can talk about Travis later. But...
yeah. But yeah, today is Ashley's, and Ashley did an amazing job. It's been like 2 years since we had it had come up initially of her DMing something.
Yeah, this is a 2-year-old promise. They hit a stretch goal like 2 years ago when they started printing their comic books, right?
It was their stretch goal for their animated TV show.
Oh, that's what it was. Gotcha.
Yeah.
And so...
And her DMing a one-shot was the last stretch goal. Mm-hmm. It was the tippy top.
Yeah.
And they hit it in like a day.
Yeah. I remember that, yeah.
Which I'm sure Ashley was like excited about because it's nice, but also like
holy crap. Yeah.
Like I gotta run this now. So luckily she had a long time to prepare.
Not like she wasn't busy or anything.
Ashley is a very busy person. All of them are pretty dang busy people.
Yeah.
They don't talk about it much, but man, looking into it a bit. But that, that's besides the point. We got a one shot to talk about.
Yeah.
Ashley did an amazing job.
So good.
How would you describe the summary? Spoilers for people. How would you describe the summary of what Ashley ran for the group?
It was basically the movie Alien.
Yeah.
That's pretty much it. So it's a sci-fi thriller horror game. And again, like, I don't like being afraid. And maybe it's because I was listening to it in broad daylight that I liked it so much. But she was so good at like setting up and describing they weren't really jump scares because it was really hard. I tell a story that it would be really hard to like pull off a jump scare in a tabletop game.
Yeah.
But like she'd set the scene for it and and I was like, this is where the jump scare is going to happen. I know it because all of these things are happening and like the lights are out and you can't see anything. And
yeah.
She's like describing like the beam of the flashlight like only hitting like a 3-foot diameter on the wall and like you can't see anything else. And I'm like, there's a freaking monster in there. I know it. And it was so intense, right? And it was so good. But hands down, my favorite thing about this one shot, it's been a while since I've listened to Critical Role. I still haven't caught up with season 2, but the last few episodes I haven't listened to. I've been reading the synopsis.
Yeah.
And catching up with the little catch-up videos where you only hear, they're like 3 minutes long.
Yeah.
But gosh dang it, dude. Hearing Travis's voice just like gave me chills, man.
Yeah.
I forgot how much I love that guy. And his character was this Marine sergeant, and he did his amazing Texas accent the whole time. And it was just like, it was everything that I wanted. It was this vulgar Marine sergeant from Texas that...
Oh, yeah.
Oh, so good. Like, I'll show you my notes. Like, the first thing I wrote here. Can you see that?
Travis with a heart.
Yeah, yep. Travis, and I drew a heart around Travis. Like,
that's amazing.
It was my favorite part.
Yeah, people that are just against things to be against things.
Uh-huh.
So they're like, Critical Role is too big. The Matt Mercer effect is a terrible thing. And I'm just over here like, man...
Just enjoy it, man. It's awesome.
I love Critical Role.
Yeah.
Like, I just...
Yeah.
The interaction...
Love it or hate
thing,
it.
which is great. Yeah.
Love it or hate it. It's good content.
Yeah.
They are talented people.
Yeah, like it's just recognizing it as what it is, where it's just it's a TV show.
Yeah.
These are all voice actors.
Yeah.
That are acting.
Yeah.
But it's also like they're all, what a weird, this we don't need to get into this.
We've
I like
talked
Critical
about
Role.
this. We've talked about
Yeah,
this.
but it was just I just enjoy watching the interactions, and it makes the D&D game more fun because they're all friends.
Mm-hmm.
I don't fanboy over a lot of things, but it's just a cool. Yeah, I just enjoy watching it, and so it was cool to watch that again. It's too bad. I'm sure that there was a number of reasons. They choose, a set of players for the one shot.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sure Matt and Ashley were both sad that Matt was not a player.
Yeah.
In Ashley's.
I was pretty sad too,
but at the same time, it worked great. Like the players that were there, it worked fantastic.
They were all fantastic. Yeah, for sure. And, all of their characters. I actually liked all of their characters, which I haven't liked all of the characters from anything from Critical Role.
Yeah.
I'd maybe ever. There's always been one character where I've been kind of like, meh. But
I can. Yeah, it's hard. I mean, that's a rare.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It's just a hard thing. I mean, those are so many different personalities, and to just be into all of them. I mean, that's just going to be an uncommon statistical thing. So
yeah,
I loved it when she started, and the first time she did the mom voice.
Oh yes, mother.
Yeah. So on the ship, there was an AI that could speak dynamically to them, and she was known and referred to as Mother.
Which ended up being like such a cool character. At the very end, her last few lines of dialogue were just like so good. Yeah,
absolutely. And she, the team in Critical Role has such a expansive like behind the camera crew these days. But the team had set up a foot pedal for her, so she would press on the foot pedal whenever she wanted to speak in the mom voice, and it was just this echoey, chamber-like reverberation, female voice.
It made it very like peaceful and like comforting to listen to. It was such a cool effect, and
that was cool. And it was so exciting just watching her, like, because I could feel the feelings of like stress, even like she's an actor.
Yeah.
But when she did the mom voice, like I could feel like the inner eye. She's like, "Oh, I hope this is cool." Like,
yes.
And the same thing when she put the map out for the first time, and then she did the overlay of the map of like the pipe system. As that became important later in the game, that they needed to know kind of where the pipes and where the routes kind of went. There was an overlay that she, like a glass or something overlay that she could put over the map. And I could just relate to her, like in her facial expression of like, I'm putting this thing out and I'm gonna put this face on, but like in reality, the next thing that a character said, like that a player says, is going to affect me emotionally in ways that I am embarrassed about.
Yep.
And so it's just cool watching somebody go through that and just capture that on camera. And then the other thing is kind of skipping ahead to maybe a comment I had for later, but we're already an hour and a half in, so it is later. There were a couple times pretty quickly in, but somebody asked something, and she as a DM got to have that experience, and I just got to watch. We just got to watch her okay, this isn't what I had planned, and this is completely opposite of what whatever the rules are, is saying. But yes, please do that, because that's freaking awesome.
Yeah.
She did that with some damage, or she did that with somebody that wanted to do cool things that maybe didn't necessarily line up with how many actions they had. During their turn, and I just love seeing that, because that's the true, like, everybody's into it, everybody's having fun. This isn't good for the rules, but this is totally good for
our
just
table.
In the moment. Yeah, you're like, in this moment, this is going to be freaking cool.
Yeah.
So
that was such a cool moment.
Yeah,
so cool.
Yeah, I loved it. Did you have a favorite part?
Just all of the cussing from Travis. I find it so, like, I don't know. I have a foul mouth, so I think swearing is funny. And especially, like, I grew up in a farm town. My great grandpa was like a big time farmer. Like, think of like the farmeriest farmer, and then like multiply it by 10, and that's like that's how I remember my great grandpa.
Yeah.
And so, like, there's that in my blood, right? And that was, like, Travis's character, but, like, a Marine.
Yeah.
Just, like, tough and, like, didn't give any crap and just, like, awesome.
He was, yeah. Everything Travis does.
Everything, yeah, I'm probably just gonna fanboy over everything Travis does until the end of time. But Talison's character, and Talison is I think Talison is the best character writer in the group.
Yeah,
Psychologically.
I could agree with
like,
that, yeah.
Even performance-wise. In the very beginning, Marisha's character said something about, Talison's character empowered me to call myself Dr. So-and-so. And, like, Talison didn't even react. And, like, the non-reaction spoke to, like his character. I can only describe it as, like, oblivious arrogance.
Yeah.
Like, of course I have the power to give her the power to call herself doctor. Like, I'm me, right? And he never said any of that. But that kind of personality was portrayed in several like tiny things that he did that I luckily picked up on, and I was like, oh, that was something a college professor would do.
Yeah, totally. I love his characters.
Mm-hmm.
I think he does a great job, like, in the moment. I think all of them do a great job staying in character.
Yeah.
But
him especially, though. Like,
yeah, he shines.
It's really hard for them to break Talison out of character.
Yeah. And I remember, I think she said something, I think Marisha's character said something about, like, let's detach the Ark. They were on a different part of the ship than another, and it was important for them to separate it out so that the monsters didn't get in. Mm-hmm. And she's like, let's detach that, and just not missing a single beat. Talison, like, he, like, startled, and he's like, you don't have the authority to do that.
Yeah.
And I was like,
yeah, it was such a cool moment.
Yeah, if it wasn't, sure, that's exactly what somebody would say if somebody took the time to make a script, but Talison just threw that out because he was in character. Mm-hmm. And he's like, no, how dare you suggest that?
Yeah.
So that's, things like that is just impressive to me.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love it. My favorite moment was Marisha's character at the end when she died.
Yeah. That was a great... Yeah, I just have, like, the ending. The whole, like, the last 15 minutes of that whole thing was just, like, epic storytelling.
Yeah.
And, like, one of the points I wanted to make about this was, I believe any story is only as good as its ending. And the ending of this story just sent this thing home. Like, the ending was phenomenal.
Yeah.
And it took every single person at that table to make it amazing.
So were they doing spoilers for people that haven't gotten that by now, but were they, like, was she just doing a Planet of the Apes reference at the end?
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, so at the beginning she said that this turned into a love letter to all of her favorite movies that she loved growing up. And so there was a lot. Okay. I mean, it was heavily inspired by the Alien movies, and then right at the very end. So their mission, we didn't talk about it. The character's mission was to escort the last remnants of the human race from this dying planet to a new hospitable planet. The Planet of the Apes reference was they landed on Earth, and the character landed, like, at the feet of the collapsed Tower of Liberty.
Yeah.
It was so cool. It was, oh man, that was such a cool part.
It was. They did a good, it was cool.
Mm-hmm. What were you saying about Marissa's character, though, at the end?
Well, her death, she did a fantastic job of, like, her character was very analytical, and all the players did a good job of, like, surprises. Like, Liam's character was not human.
Of course, Liam's character was all of that.
Yeah.
That's all Liam can do is, like, this...
The weird stuff.
Yeah. Yeah.
The weird macabre stuff is...
Right.
Yeah.
I was like, as soon as all that started happening, I face-palmed and looked up into the sky like, of course Liam did that.
Yeah. And so but Marisha's character, like, she was so like anxious, but like very like analytical about everything.
Mm-hmm.
And she did something, or like she was looking for her snake. I'll admit,
Yeah.
I was doing things while I was doing work while I was listening or watching
Right.
it.
Right.
But she went like in the middle of this fight, or at the end of this fight, when everybody was trying to do this thing, and she remembered that her pet snake was still like
Who she had been
possibly
looking
alive.
for the whole time. She was worried about her pet snake.
So she runs the opposite direction of where everybody's trying to go, and to this dangerous part of the ship. And she already had kind of seen that her snake was probably dead, but there was, she was just portraying like it's her pet, and maybe the pet is still alive. Just the the thoughts going through somebody's head. So she goes in, and her snake is super like not kosher anymore, and is all like weird and funky, and like slithers into her throat. And then she does something. I don't know exactly what she does, but then she just like, you'll have to explain to me kind of what she does. But at the very end, at the very end, she does the thing, and then she just knows that she's gonna die. So then she just kills herself. And it, like, the way that she did it fits so perfectly with her character, and it's certainly like,
it was like
morbid,
very abrupt, and so abrupt, and like surprised. It took me by surprise how emotional it was, because you'd only known these characters for like 2 hours.
Yeah. Do you know what it was that she was doing?
Yes.
Like in between, like the snake coming, like slithering inside. Okay.
So
what was it she was doing?
So it wasn't her snake. So she was looking for her snake. Her snake was in the room where the asteroid like penetrated the spaceship.
Oh, okay. Okay.
And in its own little snaky cryostasis tube. And so like the microorganism that became the xenomorph was on this little asteroid.
Okay.
And so that was when the asteroid broke into the spaceship, it killed the snake right then and there. But she never had closure the whole game. And so right at the very end, they killed the big scary monster, right? And Travis's character had been infested, and his character's life was like ticking away. And so she runs.
Can I also comment on like when the players realize that Travis doesn't have oxygen?
Yes. Oh, that was such a good moment.
Oh, like he had been sprinting through the halls, and they realize like minutes later in real time that they're like, oh, like you're not
been holding your breath
now.
this whole time. Yeah.
Yeah.
So Marisha, she goes, or I forget the character's name. She runs to find her pet snake. In the room where the alien like originated from in the spaceship. So there's like all this goop that like eventually evolves into the alien or something in the room. And she like finds the remains of her snake, and then like the black goop, then it like flies into her face, and it goes into her body. And she's infested at that point. And so like her body is now incubating one of like the big xenomorphs.
Yeah.
And so then like my favorite part of that is she was super analytical and like hyper insecure, and she always needed Talison's character.
Oh, that's right.
She always needed Talison's character's permission to do anything.
Yeah.
And then the mother AI talks to her, and she's asking Mother, I'm infected, right? And Mother says, yes, you are. So I'm gonna die, right? And Mother says, unfortunately, yes. There's no way to stop this now. And Marisha's like, well, I hope I did something useful, and I hope I wasn't an embarrassment or a disgrace or something. And then Mother just says, you've never been a disgrace to me or something. And then Marisha's character like says like, oh, I'm so happy, and then just slits her throat right there. And it was like oh my gosh, that was so freaking awesome.
Yeah. Yeah.
It was
it's,
like so poignant, just top notch storytelling all around.
yeah. And the fact that was, again, like that wasn't planned by the player. The player was just experienced,
Yeah. Yeah.
It was super cool. I mean, it was probably one of those, like, I acknowledge that it was probably like when I haven't eaten in a while. Doesn't matter what food I eat, it's gonna taste good.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. Yep.
And so it had been. We had mentioned it before. I couldn't get into Exandria Unlimited through no faults of them.
Right.
A lot of people loved it, and there were like everybody on there was fantastic. But just because of that, it had been a while since I had watched some Critical Role, and so yeah, any Critical Role is probably going to be good stuff. But yeah, Ashley did a great job, and the players did as well.
Yeah.
I want to mention we're going to wrap up here because I'm terrified on how long this is going to take me on Sunday afternoon to edit. But there was one thing back on the Wild Beyond the Witchlight that I didn't mention. That was probably one of my favorite things. Other adventure books probably have this. Like I said, I've not been the best at reading through them. But in the book, in the Feywild, or at least in this kingdom-esque of the Feywild, the previous... at some point in time, some rules had been put into place. And let me see. I'm going to turn to it real quick just so I can read them off real quick. So rules of conduct. And so these rules have been put into place in this land. And there were 3 of them. And basically you can't, like, if you are hosting a guest in your home, you have to be gracious and accommodating to them until they prove that they're not deserving of that. You can't, rule of ownership, you can't steal, basically. And then rule of I can never say this name, or this word, reciprocity?
Reciprocity, yeah.
Yeah. A friend, enemy, or a stranger offers you a gift. You are obliged to accept it and offer something of comparable value, be it a gift or service in return. Such reciprocation need not happen immediately. And I was like, okay, that's neat. But then later in the book, it mentions that they're kind of challenged in a couple different ways. And one of them was there's an inn where, like, fantastic, a warm bed in a covered room, and like hot food and nice entertainment, like those are all provided to the characters for free. But if the players don't remember the rule of reciprocity, they will inadvertently break that rule, because even though it's free, that rule means that they're supposed to pay for it in some way, shape, or form.
Yeah.
And so then there's a consequence, be it maybe not in that moment, but at some point during the adventure, or at least at the end of the adventure, that's a consequence. And immediately I was like, oh, I love that. You guys know, I love consequences.
Yes.
And I also love anytime I can, like, put something in, like, early, and then just leave it.
Yep.
And
sit on it forever.
Yeah, and just let it chill. That's just super cool to me. And so that whole concept of, like, okay, these are the things, and then however many sessions later, they're in this random place and they're just given something for free, which is very that's a thing that many D&D players value, is free things,
free stuff.
And so that got me in a way. I was like, oh, big fan of this, and I have to implement stuff like this more into my games, obviously. So I just wanted to mention that. I don't know if I explained it kind of correctly on kind of what is going on in my head when I think about that, but I love the concept. That was the last thing I wanted to mention about that book. So we had some good, even though we didn't even play this week, we had some good D&D stuff.
We did. So yes. Oh man, and I'm super looking forward to this next month of D&D stuff, because my story is heating up that we're in. Yeah. Oh yeah, I'm excited. And possibly the first book that I will ever own myself is coming out in October. You know about this, Jordan. I do. Yeah, we're going to be... that won't come up on the podcast until probably towards the end of November, because we got a lot of exciting stuff. We do. I'm excited. But it's going to be a good week. When we start reading it,
it's gonna be intook immediately. And Brian, you'll be happy to know that is already pre-ordered.
You're a saint.
On D&D Beyond. And we don't need to talk about the other avenues by which it may fall into my hands. And so all that matters is that immediately you'll be able to read it on D&D Beyond. So.
That makes me so happy. I'm so happy.
Yeah, so it should be good. Thanks everybody for listening. I'm excited for what we have for our next release. I don't want to mention it right now because it might change a little bit, but it'll be a good one either way.
Yes, it'll be good. Always remember, folks, don't believe anything we say.
Indeed. Good night. Or good morning. Goodbye.